Gaze up to the ceiling, sinking into dark. I cannot escape this familiar feeling. I am not alone here. I am not alone. Something wicked this way comes. I'm surrounded by shadows, rising up from the floorboards like black smoke. Silhouettes at the front door, they come alive when the lights out and the silence is so loud. I'm surrounded by shadows. Show yourself to me. Stand here in the stillness. Pull me into pieces. Pull me into pieces. Something wicked this way comes. I'm surrounded by shadows, rising up from the floorboards like black smoke. Silhouettes at the front door, they come alive when the lights out and the silence is so loud. I'm surrounded by shadows. I'm surrounded by shadows, rising up from the floorboards like black smoke. Silhouettes at the front door, they come alive with the lights out and the silence is so loud.
And we're live.
Yay!
Yay. All right. Yeah, welcome back to CannaHeads ND, episode 4 of season 2. It's your once a week podcast for the latest in cannabis, local, and national news every Sunday, starting at around 7:30 p.m. Typically, we go for about an hour to an hour and a half. My name is Phil.
I'm Anthony.
And yeah, welcome back to the show, everybody. Be sure to check out KRFF Radio Free Fargo on 95.9 on Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. with Greg Wilson. The shows end up on the YouTube channel usually 1 to 2 days later, just kind of depending on what's going on in my day. But you can also stream it live on radiofreefargo.org between the 4 or 5 p.m. and also on any podcasting platform about 1 to 2 hours later, just because I have to cut out all the copyrighted music and then I can put it up on podcasting platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, those are the two biggest ones. Links are in the description down below if you want to go to each one, whichever is your preferred podcasting platform of choice. I usually use Spotify, but that's because Joe Rogan is now on Spotify, so that means that I'm using Spotify. Yeah, I watch Joe Rogan, and I'm not.
I love Joe Rogan.
Right? He used to, well, his stuff just started going onto Spotify. A couple of his controversial is what most people said. Didn't go onto Spotify yet, but that's just because they're still processing it, I guess. So yeah, there's that. But I know for a fact that um that my audio is low is what I know for a fact, and that I'm working on fixing is actually what I know for a fact. Give me 1 second. All right, you go here. I don't know why my audio all of a sudden just goes low, but there we go. Yeah, so I know like his stuff is still transferring over, but yeah, subscribe to Joe Rogan. There's a couple, like, if you're into like YouTube drama, Mom's Basement is one thing. Yeah, check out podcasts. Podcasts are fun. I like podcasts, which is why I have one. But yeah, another little housekeeping thing. YouTube, you get one of these YouTube rants from me about once a month. um, YouTube, in its infinite wisdom, has decided to change up their algorithm in such a way that small channels like us um, isn't like directly affected by it, but can be very, very much affected by it in the coming months of when they decide to tweak it a little bit. So essentially, the new algorithm from basically looking at the, I basically watch the algorithm a lot, so that's why I know. Um, if you have over 1,000 subscribers, for instance, your YouTube notifications when you upload a video, the amount of engagement in the first hour is what dictates how many notifications it sends out throughout the entire lifetime of the video. This includes recommended and also the emails. And the emails are the one that actually drives most of our traffic. So what that means is if our video gets 4 to 5 views, which is above our average, then that means the notifications will go out and the emails will go out. It's not the second that you upload when the emails go out. It's just, in its infinite wisdom, decides to figure out who would be the most to click on that video is the ones that get the email. So what that basically means is these streams, they always get low engagement, but when it comes to these types of streams, the reason why I do them the most is to get content up and also to drive more people to watch the videos. I enjoy talking about politics, I enjoy talking about news and all of that stuff, but the main reason that I like doing this show is because it gives another opportunity for people to look at the page and to subscribe. So because of that, I'm thinking about branching out more platforms. When we were on Facebook, when we were on that page, we had a lot more engagement on Facebook that didn't really translate to YouTube. So it's a little bit more difficult to say I want to go back to Facebook. On the other hand, Twitch has also been very heavy-handed in bans. So going to Twitch is kind of a risky situation. I'm kind of thinking about multi-streaming to Twitch, but when it comes to that, at one point or another, depending on how successful a Twitch channel ends up being, it may dictate actually closing down the YouTube avenue for my streams. I'm not talking about any other videos. I'm just talking about this show. So the reason why is Twitch has a TOS rule of basically if you reach a certain amount of subscribers, you can monetize. The monetization, while it's not like, $1 million or anything like that, it would be very helpful for our shows and everything like that. Reason being is, like, when it comes to this show, that song that you just heard at the beginning, I pay $12 a month for that. And I'm locked, actually, and the reason why I still do it is because I'm locked into a contract. So even if I get $12 back, that's great. It's $12. I'll be fine. I'm not going homeless over it. I'm just saying that it would make it so that it's a little bit more sustainable. the same thing with YouTube, but the YouTube doesn't have the exclusivity. So once you hit 1,000 subscribers, you can monetize, and it's up to us if we want to. Just with the way that YouTube works, if you say the word cannabis, which I just did, then you don't really get monetization, or you get suppressed, basically. So yeah, that's just that. So if you hear about a Twitch channel coming up, don't be surprised. It's probably, if I do Twitch, it's gonna be like 2 years before we actually cut off the ability, or this show from going on YouTube. But I just want to make it clear, it's this show, not the podcast that Greg does. It's this one. And that's, it's kind of the thing that I like about streaming and this show and everything like that. I love YouTube. I love video creation, content creation, just anything like that. I want to be able, it's a learning thing. Like, this channel is more of a learning thing for me, because this is how I know about things in the algorithm, or how, how to get more content for other different topics and everything like that. I think my niche is going to be content that doesn't go with the norms of these platforms. I am planning on doing, I'm going to be doing 100% a Kratom review channel, where I review Kratom vendors, because I am a huge Kratom advocate. Because, I get like a kilo every other week.
Oh, we're still plugging the YouTube channel.
Well, I'm just, yeah, it's a little bit of a talking thing, but yeah. So stay on the lookout. Tell your friends the best way that you can support this channel, just in general. It has nothing to do with money. It has everything to do with sharing. So if you go on Facebook, search up Canna Talk ND. It is actually it's a page that doesn't get suppressed by Facebook. That says a lot. Whereas another page that we know was always getting suppressed by Facebook. I would always fix it, and then it would get suppressed again. So, Canna Talk ND, best way to get up to date with everything that's going on with cannabis in North Dakota. On YouTube, Canna Talk ND on YouTube, and Canna Talk ND on Facebook. That's pretty much your best option for this type of stuff. And also Radio Free Fargo. We're the only ones in North Dakota that talks about this, so that's something to give to people. So yeah, tell your friends, share posts. If you see a post on Canna Talk ND that you really like on Facebook, share it. If you want to talk about it to other people and talk about cannabis stuff, yeah. So like, it's kind of it helps us a lot. Just share is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so that's just kind of housekeeping things. And talking about platforms and how they get suppressed, Twitter has decided to show its bias. They collaborated with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, which is like the people who basically talk about mental health and actually set up like the rules for people to be diagnosed with mental health illnesses and everything like that. So they have the DSAM 5 or something, which is the 5 major ones. But the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has planned with Twitter to begin adding a notification about relevant tweets on select drug terms. So these are cannabis, marijuana, and so I thought that was interesting, and I was wondering, well, I mean, alcohol is a drug, right? So here's what it looks like with if you type in marijuana into Twitter. here's what it looks like if you type in alcohol into Twitter. And yeah. Oh, I can hear myself. Okay, that was you. All right. So this is what it looks like with alcohol. Um, you know, I'm sure they're over the age of 21 and everything like that. But basically, uh, that's what it looks like when you do that. Well, then what does it look like if you type in heroin? It has the same thing. How about meth? It does the same thing. So basically, what this means, what the takeaway could be with Twitter, is marijuana, heroin, and meth are drugs, and alcohol is not. So there's obviously a bunch of different reasons why somebody would type in marijuana into search on Twitter. Of the people that I know, you might know some people that think this way, but if you search up a term into Twitter, that doesn't mean you're going to try to find said thing. You're probably going to try to find news about said thing, or to kind of see what's going on with a certain topic. A lot of people use Twitter for news. I do. Um, so no one's gonna type in marijuana searching to pick up a bag. No one does that. Literally no one. So the fact that they're saying, if you or someone you know is struggling with substance use, you are not alone. Our partner, Samsha, and that's their number, can help. And this is the number that basically will find, what rehabs there are. So, I don't understand why one wouldn't have that for alcohol, because I think there is more destructive potential with alcohol, that people will be, addicted, and especially with alcohol, where if you stop, you could go into a seizure and die. Whereas if you stop smoking weed, you'll just be a little bored. So, yeah, it's a little weird. That's for sure. Sorry, I had to up my volume again. It decided to go down. But yeah, so it's a little weird that that's on there in the first place. But it's even more weird that it's not under alcohol. So if we're gonna be doing the whole, reach out for help type of thing, which is great, honestly, nothing wrong with that. There really is nothing wrong with that. Um, at least do it across the board for like all the alcohol or all the drugs. Um, I mean, addiction is there are a lot of things you can get addicted to, not only just drugs. But the most destructive ones would be possibly drugs. I mean, there's other destructive ones: gambling, sex. Trying to think of the other destructive ones. I mean, you could technically, hurt yourself by there's people who are addicted to exercise. Like, honestly, straight up addicted to exercise, and the fact that they will actually put themselves through so much stress that they can die. And or dieting. People are addicted to certain diets and all that stuff. At least do it across the board is what I'm trying to say. Like, all right, I get it. It's a controlled substance according to them, or according to the federal government. So, at least hey, people believe that it's bad, so people might need help with their bad thing or their bad habit or whatever. I don't believe it's a bad habit, but whatever. At least do it across the board.
Right, especially in a place like this where we had to keep alcohol available when everything was shutting down.
Right. Yeah. Specifically because of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's. I wish that they. Sorry, I'm pulling up your story here too. I wish that if you're gonna be reaching people out for help, at least do it for everybody. So yeah, I don't know. Twitter really hasn't commented on it. It's not like, business ruining decision type of thing that they're gonna comment on something like that. But hopefully, one day
Well, and
soon.
it just definitely lacks sense.
Right.
Alcohol is one of the most addictive substances to man, the most widely available
Yeah.
addictive substance.
Yeah, and I think that if anyone, like, obviously people aren't, I mean, like I said, they're not reaching out to buy alcohol by searching up alcohol on Twitter. It might just be something that they're interested in, but it's also the same thing with cannabis. Typing in marijuana into Twitter will get you a hell of a lot more hits than cannabis, and it's there's collectors of alcohol. I love IPAs and I love sours, so like I don't
I
go
love
on Twitter.
scotch.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's people who collect it and just want to know news about it. It's the same thing with cannabis and marijuana. Um,
But the big difference is one of them that has that warning has a 0 kill count, and the one that they're letting slide under the radar right now has thousands
yeah,
a year.
exactly. And yeah, I mean, I'm all for trying to get people help if they are, having issues with their lives. But at least also cover the people who drink too much. Um, yeah. So, Tel Aviv. Tell me a little bit more about Tel Aviv.
Some activists in Tel Aviv, Israel, in case you guys don't know where Tel Aviv is, they used a drone to drop a bunch of weed. Basically, it stemmed from everybody being cooped up during the pandemic, that somebody from their group was like, "What does anybody need?" or whatever, and they got slammed with people saying that they wanted some green. So, Green Drone, sorry, is an activist group that campaigns for the legalization of cannabis. Medical cannabis is allowed in Israel, but recreational is not.
Okay.
Uh, they promised to distribute free weed on social media and followed through on their pledge. According to the Times of Israel, the weed shower doubled as an advertising stunt for Green Drone's delivery service. They dropped it high above the Rabin.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna go
guess.
with Rabin.
Yeah, I think it's Rabin.
Rabbi, close enough. Uh, High enough above Rabin Square, which is a busy park in the center of Tel Aviv. A number of bags were snatched up before local police could get to the scene. Police said they seized a large quantity of the bags filled with the quote unquote dangerous drug, and that 2 men had been arrested on suspicion for controlling the drone. You know damn well they barely got any of what was dropped. People probably
Right.
snatched that shit up before it even hit the ground.
I think there was a video, I think, or maybe. I don't know. Let's see what this one is.
See
No,
that?
that's
That
just a
right
news
there?
story. Which one?
Oh, I was just gonna say that drone up there. That's our dude. That's our
Right?
dude.
There was I think somebody shot a video. I don't know when this was actually like going on last week or this week. I don't know what to call like when it happened, but I remember somebody showed a video, but I'm not sure if that was real or not. I think they were just like trying to
I
make fun of it because like it's no different than like if a drone decided to like drop a whole bunch of money, people are going to go and run and grab it. But yeah, like can you imagine like that just happening? Like it does happen in prisons too, like where they fly a drone over it. Um,
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna send you a link real quick on Skype.
all right. Uh, can it let me click it? Oh, I have to open up the chat. Well, that's weird. Yeah, this is the video with that. All right. Let me throw this into watch together. It's a little bit easier to comment over it.
Yeah, they dead ass used a drone
All right.
to
Are
drop
you in the
cannabis.
watch together thing?
I am not.
Oh, okay. Well,
Sorry.
I'll just do it through this then. Okay. Um, I suppose I should probably turn on the audio work through here.
Nah.
This one needs to go to this one. Right, and I thought I was prepared because we're also gonna have video, so audio is a helpful thing. All right, let's just watch this happening. Why aren't you going? What the hell? Well, anyway, that's the video of that happening. I don't know why.
Yep. Drone does a release. It drops over that square. A lot of it landed in the road, which is very unfortunate because from what I understand, Israeli weed is amazing.
Is it?
But yeah. Well, keep in mind, Israel has been a very, very large-scale producer of medical cannabis globally for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're the ones that had that, what was that story a couple weeks ago that we did?
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Where they took
Bioengineered.
yeah.
Yeah. They might have. Yeah, I'm surprised that it's, you know, Israel. Yeah, Israel is in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is in Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they're like the ones that break it through, but there's actually a lot of stuff that's come from Israel as far as science stuff. But yeah, like I bet they have. I mean, they're a drier area, right? So they also have more sun too, and they're not in the. I don't know. They don't have as many storms going on and stuff there, so yeah, they probably have some pretty good stuff. That's crazy. Yeah, so I opened up too many tabs. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised that they that first of all, I'm surprised it didn't create like some sort of what's the thing during Black Friday where people like trample each other?
It's Black Friday.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's almost like Black Friday for coronavirus and
What's
cannabis.
the number for 911?
Yeah. Yeah, Biden, don't, okay, before I get into this, let's take let's take the whole Democrat versus Republican thing completely out of this equation. So, whether or not you feel good or bad towards Biden, or whether or not you feel good or bad towards Trump, or, Joe Jorgensen, here is a kind of concerning thing that he said. So there was supposed to be a clip. I'm really fucking hoping that the audio thing works. Yeah, I don't know. I have set it to go to the right thing, so you would think it does. Alright, well, we're gonna risk it. So Joe Biden had basically was talking about this. If you're in the watch together, this one actually might work. All right, here we go. It's not going through. Really. All right, how about if I do this? Live tech support with Phil. Currently. Why are you on 15? You're supposed to be on 14. Okay, here we go. Let's try this again.
Whole from prison.
It's peaking and I can't hear it. Alright. And it's dropping frames. I swear I will get this figured out. General. I need audio. Me, my audio control. Supposed to be there. Okay. Alright, let's try this again. I'm gonna lock you there.
A whole lot of to reform. So, for example,
you guys can hear it.
Anybody serves their time in prison, they get out, they should be entitled to every single program that exists under the federal government. Why don't we want them getting a Pell Grant and going to school? Why don't we want them getting a job and being able to get public housing subsidies? Why don't we want them qualifying for what used to be called food stamps? But right now, I wrote years ago with a guy named Specter, a senator from Pennsylvania, the Second Chance Act. Because right now we're in a situation where you get out of prison, and I think you all know this, you get a bus ticket and $25.
Okay, let's in certain states you get a bus ticket and some money. Coming from somebody who has been to prison in Minnesota, you actually get a lot more than $100. Than $10 or $25. It's $100. And as far as bus ticket goes, you have to buy your own. Yeah, just want to clear that up. It's not in every single state. You get like a gate fee is what it's called. So yeah, but in most states you get out of prison and you're pretty much like on your own.
By the way, 93.
You are. What happened? All right. You get out of prison and you're kind of on your own to figuring out how to get to your PO, because right as you get out, you have 24 or maybe it was 48 hours to show up to your PO's office and do an intake thing with them. So that's why the bus ticket. There's a lot of people, especially in prison systems. You go in through one city, you go through pre-class, and then they send you out to a prison that is available, depending on your classification. So like if you're a low danger person like I was, they send you to basically the nicest prison that they have. If you're a high danger person, like I know some people are, they end up in Stillwater in Minnesota, which is basically like what you see in movies as far as prison goes. Whereas like where I went, it was a lot chiller. You could go outside, you could do whatever you want, basically. Almost like a vacation. But yeah, you basically end up like I was in Minneapolis when I got arrested and sent off. I was in, I forgot the city. It's in southern Minnesota. It's about 4 hours away from Twin Cities, and you have to figure out your way to get to the Twin Cities because that's where parole is. If you're living in the Twin Cities, for instance. If you're living in Crookston, for instance, you have to get your way up to Crookston to do that. Not sure why there's an error that occurred. He goes on to basically say, this. I guess it decided not to play through. Oh, this might work. Whatever. He goes on to say, anybody who gets convicted of a drug crime, not one that is in terms of massive selling, so like not major drug dealers, but consumption, they shouldn't go to prison. They should go to mandatory rehabilitation. That's what this was in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And instead of building more prisons, as we've been proposing for some time, we build rehabilitation centers. To break this down a little bit, when it comes to rehab, first of all, there are no standards as far as no federal guidelines for how rehab programs work. There's obviously the same medical, like your protection of privacy and everything like that. But as far as like the best form of counseling or anything like that, there are no standards. Many places, I went to a rehab myself, they'll take a multi-pronged approach, so like different forms of treatment for addiction, and many perform or have, there's some that are just straight religious. Teen Challenge. Yeah, if you just a little hint to people, if you get like a huge charge and you're going down for a long time, Teen Challenge is probably your answer out. Teen Challenge is super religious, like as in daily church services, singing in the church or in the choir, praying to God when you eat. It's super hardcore religious, and it's super hardcore as far as the treatment goes. But you don't have to be a teen to be in Teen Challenge. It's basically the terminology for the rehab program that they have. There's also a 12 steps type approach where, you got your 12 steps. There's equine and art therapies where you'll like have a pet therapy or drawing stuff, or riding horses and kind of like having a different hobby. Um, so the reason why that these are different approaches and why it's so prevalent as far as multi-pronged approaches is basically there's not a lot of research to say that there's one correct, absolute, proven to doubt form of recovery or form of treatment for addiction. Yes, that includes 12-step programs. And I know some people who are in recovery that swear and say 12 steps is the correct answer and it's always right. I would challenge them to look at DBT and CBT therapies and how successful those are, and then you'll know exactly why 12-step programs aren't the proven one specific proven form, and that is the only way type of a recovery. Whether it's for you or not, that's a completely different story. So there's not like a correct form. So if you're going to say a mandatory addiction counseling and all that stuff, I mean, it's a better approach than throwing them in prison. But at the same time, it's kind of like gonna turn into the type of a prison. Like you'll basically just have a drug prison versus a actual prison. Which is better for some people. You don't meet the colorful people that end up in prison. You don't end up being in like a group with like sexual predators or anything like that. But at the same time, you'll have some states that have a certain form of counseling. Like I'd say like more in the South, for instance, will have a lot more religious. Like let's talk about the Bible Belt. There'll be a religious type of approach for those states, and in other states there'll be equine therapy or something like that. In some states, it's going to basically make it that the rehab industry will basically get a hell of a lot more money than they already do. So that's not the correct answer in my opinion, but it's a little weird, and a lot of people also say if we put them in a rehab, first of all, let's separate one thing from another. Yes, there is a actual diagnosis that you can get that says that you are addicted to cannabis. But if you end up in a rehab for that and you say that out loud to anybody, everybody will make fun of you. I went to rehab with somebody that did that, or that ended up having to because of court. There's also the different types of addictions. You can be addicted to methamphetamines, polydrug use, the opiates, all that stuff. In certain cases, medication-assisted therapy is better for certain things. Like let's talk about opiate abuse. But there is no requirement for that type of a therapy in a lot of these rehabs. Even though SAMHSA, which is the group that we were talking about on Twitter, they had basically said that there's a lot of evidence to prove that medication-assisted therapy is the best. Also, the reason why I'm connecting it to cannabis is basically Biden has said in the past that he believes it should be decriminalized, but it shouldn't be like federally recreational or federally medical, that it should just be decriminalized. Decriminalization does not mean that, oh, you get caught with it, you just walk away and they just take it away from you. Like, it's not like that at all. You end up with a ticket in some cases, and in other cases you end up having to go to rehab. North Dakota, for instance, or I think in North Dakota has that. If you get caught, you have to, like, if you get caught, I think the third time or something like that, you have to do rehab. something.
Yeah, I don't know that. I just know if it's under an ounce or under half an ounce or whatever, it's a fine.
Yeah. So I think North Dakota has, after a certain amount of tickets that you gotten, you have to go to rehab. Not 1,000% sure. Don't quote me on that, but that's decriminalized technically. North Dakota is decriminalized.
Technically.
Technically, exactly what I'm saying. Biden is talking about decriminalized could mean a shitload of different things, and that means that there's still going to be consequences. They're just not going to be prison terms. So, by that regard, the way that he's meaning this, I'm not sure. They reached out for like a little bit more clarification. Didn't get it back. This is to Marijuana Moment. Marijuana Moment reached out to them. There wasn't clarification on it, but by what he just said, if you get caught, you will be sent to mandatory treatment for possession, which is no different than being sent to jail for possession. It's the fact of being mandatory put into something because of a natural plant that you had in your possession that helps you. That's where it's a little bit weird. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, another thing is, and I think a lot of people seem to misunderstand these types of things. How many promises have politicians made in public and never followed through? And also, how many promises that politicians have made that even put into motion does not guarantee it actually happening, considering the fact that, like, the president doesn't make all of the laws. They don't make laws. That would be Congress is one of them. The
Legislative
branch, that's the word. I just couldn't think of the word. But yeah, so those kinds of promises and everything like that were made to be broken. And yeah, that basically is what that means. That's not to say that that a president can do an executive order passing something, but that's short term before a legislative branch has to pass something or it expires. So look at the tax law or the tax. Are we calling it a tax holiday still? Is that still a thing?
They're trying to call it that.
Yeah. Also, let me just slip this one in. If your employer gives you the opportunity to take a tax holiday, just remember that you will owe it at the end of said tax holiday. This means...
Yep. And also, it's not your choice either.
And some employers do. They reached out to me and they said, "Hey, you want this?" And I said, "Fuck no. You can keep taking this from me."
They were trying to scale who's in and who's out.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It's a organizational level thing where either your company's in or it's out. Like it's an opt-in or out process.
Yeah. Well, in that case, I'm really hoping that they opted out. Another thing is for a lot of businesses, it's a huge risk because that's to say that that employee stays at the company after December 31st because they're the ones who collect it for the federal government. If you don't, then it will show up on your taxes when you file them in April. So, you have an extra 4 months to pay that back type of thing. And if you don't, then you just owe it all at once. It was a way to, yeah, if he gets reelected, apparently he's gonna just abolish income taxes just in general, which cool. Not gonna give my opinion on that, but yeah, that's the thing that he did. Now, for what most people would be watching this for, Nebraska. So let's get a couple things covered in first. Nebraska has what's called a single subject rule, which basically is a state law that requires ballot initiatives to address a single issue or subject. It's in 26 states that provide at least some form of this, and 15 of which have 26 states have a citizen-led initiative, basically. So in 26 states, you can pass a law as a citizen. 15 of those have single rule. Single subject means that you have one subject and you can't, like, ND voters first it, is what I'm trying to say. So there was a... Well, actually, let's also talk about the process here. This is the one, right? Yeah. All right. In order to pass an initiative, they basically... Why playing proposal? Okay, here we go. So, before you can just go out and get signatures, you have to draft the actual measure, obviously. You also have to make a statement of purpose, or an object clause, apparently is what they call it. That is submitted to the Secretary of State, who then sends it to the Reviser of Statutes. I don't know how to say that word. Statutes. Let's talk about statutes now. Statutes. To review it. So, let's just talk about the amount of people who will read said measure before it can get signatures. You got the person that's writing it. We're going to just put them off to the side because they're the ones who write it. You got the Secretary of State, the Reviser of Statutes, then it goes to, I guess, the proposed measure will go into something called form and draftsmanship and recommends changes to said law, or to said measure. They can accept or reject those changes. So that's basically what that would be basically mean is they proofread it and make sure that it makes sense and it is logical and actually will fit in the state. Then once that is accepted or rejected, the Secretary of State makes a proofread of the copy and includes the statement of purpose and the text of the measure and the sponsors. So they will verify its sponsorship, all of that. So that is, well, two people that read it. Secretary of State, Reviser of Statutes. That's the word. So you got these two people that read it, that approved it. So I'm not 100% sure. I haven't talked to the people. Would love to. Honestly, would really love to. I might actually reach out to them. We'll see. So those two people read it, and they said, all good. This follows under the laws. This makes sense. These are the things that we think we should change. Not 100% sure if they accepted or denied that, or if there was no changes even. And more than likely, it was probably no changes. And so they got all their signatures. They got slammed by COVID. They suspended their campaign for, I think it was like 2 months. They restarted it up. They got all their signatures. They got more than the signatures that they needed. And they go to submit. And the Secretary of State goes through, reads it all, certifies that the measure is on the ballot, goes through with it. About a week before it actually gets printed onto the ballot, or like basically like set in stone type of thing, it gets, somebody like has an objection to it, and the Secretary of State said, nope, your objection does not matter here. You don't have a case, basically, is what he said. And so that got rejected, and a sheriff in some sort of county decided to sue, and it went to Supreme Court in Nebraska. And they had said, as proposed, the Nebraska Medical Cannabis Constitutional Amendment contains more than one subject. By our count, it contains at least 8 subjects. The court concluded, in addition to enshrining in our Constitution a right to have certain peoples to produce and medically use cannabis under subsections 1 and 2, in subsections 3 and 4, the NMCCA would enshrine, I'm guessing NMCCA is the, Nebraska Medical Cannabis Constitutional Amendment would enshrine a right and immunity for entities to grow and sell cannabis, and in subsections 6, 7, and 8, it would regulate the role of cannabis in at least 6 areas of public life. These secondary purposes are not naturally and necessarily connect to the Nebraska Medical Cannabis Constitutional Amendment primary purpose. As such, they constitute log rolling. I'm guessing log rolling means they're rolling it all into one measure, which you would think would be a single subject. But apparently, according to the Supreme Court there, that is not the case. Secretary of State Bob Evans said in a press release about the court's decision that he did that, and I quote, did my best to make these determinations on a timely basis in accordance with law. I'm not sure why timely basis is in there. Maybe it's just the phrasing from their PR person, or if he's meaning that he did his best because he had a lot of other things going on and he tried to do it in the best timely fashion and he possibly overlooked it. I was gonna watch some of the hearing, and I'm really hoping it pops up. Just do this because I think that this, I really hope I didn't just get like flagged. Did this tab just crash? Playlist. Yeah, it just crashed. Okay.
I was gonna say, on my end, looks fine.
Get video. That's the drone. Let's get video. There we go. Alright. Now, this is a 52-minute long video. We're not going to watch the entire 52 minutes. But I feel like this might be a little bit of a comedic thing. So, yeah, we're going to clown on this guy a little bit. Yeah. Let me see. My levels. Why is my mic just like going insane? Better? Better. Alright. So, here's the video, and I'm going to try my best. You're on the video sharing thing, right?
I believe it's open.
Alright, cool.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm going to have to flick my mic up and down because apparently the pass-through isn't working, so, yeah. Here we go. Alright. Switch things. There we go. Okay, where's the people talking? Alright, they're doing the Pledge of Allegiance. There we go. I think this is it.
In what he determined was a close question in a close case, determined that the Medical Cannabis Constitutional Amendment was legally sufficient and rejected relators' request in what he determined was a close question in a close case, determined that the Medical Cannabis Constitutional Amendment was legally sufficient.
So they just said that this is the reason why we're here type of thing. So
Rejected relators' request that the measure be withheld from the ballot. It is the relators' position that this close case was wrongly decided by the Secretary of State, and thus the present original action was filed. It is the relators' position for today's roadmap. First, I'm going to lay out some of the specific text in the proposal and highlight some of the problems with it. Second, I will...
And boy, is he going to do that. He is about to make some really, really insane crackpot theories and explanations to something that while, yes, there was... I can agree with him on a certain part and a few statements and a few things, but he also seems to have completely forgot the fact that this is a constitutional measure and not a statutory measure, so that this would be a groundwork or a fundamental to build upon by other laws. If he doesn't believe that that's true, then he would then be under the assumption, and this is a far assumption here, he would then be under the assumption that all statutory laws make no difference and do not build upon any constitutional laws. So essentially, we might as well just throw away all the statutory laws and just follow the goddamn Constitution. Apparently, that's what he wants to do. And he does have a couple decent ones, but yeah, these are like absolute terrible takes in my opinion. You know, my opinion doesn't really matter here. Not from Nebraska, but yeah, here we go.
They explained why the measure must be withheld from the November 2020 ballot. First, it violates the single subject rule. Second, it confuses voters as to the issues they will be asked to decide. Finally, it creates doubt as to what action voters will have authorized after the election, if in fact it passes. First, the proposed constitutional amendment. The Nebraska Medical Cannabis Constitutional Amendment, which seeks to create a new Article 19 in our state constitution. It contains 9 subsections. Sections 1 and 2 can be combined together for our discussion here today. They essentially provide that for individuals 18 and older, and those younger than 18, these sections would grant such individuals a right, if recommended by a licensed physician or nurse practitioner, to use, possess, access, purchase, and produce an adequate supply of cannabis, cannabis products, and cannabis-related equipment to, quote, alleviate, close quote, a serious medical condition.
Alleviate. I mean, is there any other way that you can explain medicinal cannabis to anybody else? You have a condition, you take your medicine, and it alleviates your condition. Painkillers do not stop pain. They do not, like, make it so you never hurt ever again. You don't just take painkillers once and no more pain there. You don't take antibiotics and you just have to take one and it's fixed. It's alleviating it, and it's giving your body the ability to fight it, or, you know, make you forget about pain. That's how medicine works. Cannabis does not. You don't just smoke it and you never have anxiety ever again, or you sleep the best ever for the rest of your life.
How great would that be?
Dude,
one joint, you actually sleep like a child again.
Right? Yeah, like, alleviate is just the terminology for, you know, fixing the reason. We're talking about medicinal here, so fixing the reason why you were prescribed it. He goes on to make another very crazy thing. I'm pretty sure that this is where this goes. So, yeah.
Do we have any other constitutional rights that are contingent on a recommendation of a physician?
Not that I know off the top of my head, Your Honor.
Is that a legal sufficiency problem?
Well, there's a lot of problems with this.
All right,
Certainly, one of our
part.
arguments is the fact that the right to go purchase or acquire cannabis for the purposes stated forth in the proposal, there's no indication that the physician even has to be licensed in the state of Nebraska.
Okay. Licensed in the state of Nebraska. That's kind of what I was waiting for. And this was actually also in the opinion. The thing that they also were, you know, not sure of was the fact that it's still federally a controlled substance. I'm not 1,000% sure, but when it comes to everything that I've looked up on Nebraska, you can't even fill a controlled substance prescription if it was written out of state. So if I went and got a prescription for a controlled substance, like Adderall or, opiates, I go to Nebraska, I'm on vacation or whatever, and I need to fill this prescription, I can't go to a pharmacy and request a refill or get my prescription given to them. As long as it was written in the state, I can get it filled, and also within 21 days from the time that the prescription was written. So if I waited, like, even if I lived in Nebraska and I got a prescription for Adderall and there was like a bunch of them, because controlled substance, you still have to write single prescription, you can't write refillables. You write a prescription for each time that you would need it from the time you refill. You can't like have extra and wait 21 days from the time that you had the extra to run out to go refill it. On the 22nd day, that prescription is invalid. If it's a controlled substance. If it's like, ibuprofen 800s, you can go and get it filled at, anywhere. But
Yeah.
if it's a controlled substance, you cannot. So, by that same regard, you can't get a prescription from California and get it filled in Nebraska. That's insanity. I don't think anybody would ever be okay with that. I don't think anybody would ever even try to be okay with that. I think it's basically a way to paint the picture of anarchy. And also, another thing that you noticed was anyone over the age of 18 or even younger. Why don't you just say anyone? Why did you have to let them know that it was under the age of 18? You're trying to paint a picture of anarchy or of disarray or, of imminent type of insanity, which was not what this was supposed to do. He even actually doubles down on it here in this next little portion, I think. I watched like 15-20 minutes of this. I'm just going to get to the part where he says some insane theory about, I think it's coming up. Here we go.
And it's also unclear from the proposal what it is that physician or nurse practitioner is to recommend. Is it to say this will alleviate, but you can purchase unknown quantities of it? It's unclear.
Well, in that same regard, then I guess if a doctor feels like I need opiates, I can get as many opiates as I want, apparently. Because that obviously wouldn't be in a recommendation, the dosage amount and how often a dose, right? I'm not talking about, like, I know that a doctor can't prescribe you cannabis, but they can recommend it, and it's the same thing as if a doctor recommends that you go see a physical therapist or anything like that. In that recommendation, it tells you, I recommend it being, the full program, like 4 weeks. It's in the recommendation. I'm not 100% sure because I don't have a legal cannabis in North Dakota, but like in California, I had a limit. That limit was insane, but there was a limit. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't really read everything about it. Again, would love to talk to the Nebraska people, but the people, I'm sure, when they were writing it and thinking of this, and I'm sure that they had a lawyer and everything write it up, they probably have considered, how are we going to set limits and how are we going to set, the framework for this. It's a constitutional amendment. If you have an entire legal framework in your constitution, that's probably never going to get people to vote yes. That's essentially being like, you can't even change this. We think that this is right, and nobody can touch it ever again or change it ever again unless we all vote on it. That wasn't the point, and I'm sure it wasn't. It's the same thing with ND Freedom of Cannabis Act. It was a framework. They were going to write laws that would basically set up the entire system. It wasn't just going to be, that anybody and everything after this happens, it's legal. You can grow as much as you want. You can do whatever. First of all, there's 12 plants, 6 adult. But that limitation would be basically the basis for the statutory laws that would control the constitutional amendment. That's how laws work. They don't just... Oh, it's freedom of speech, for instance. Federally, you have the freedom of speech. But you can't... There's a law. You can't cause panic. You can't go to a movie theater and yell, fire. I'm pretty sure, I guess I'm about to double down on this, pretty sure that's not in the Constitution. Pretty sure that's a federal law that supports the Constitution. Pretty sure. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but you get the idea, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
I'll tell you, Bresky, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Address to legal sufficiency, or which is what's on the table pre-election.
Also, let me just add on a little bit here. North Dakota, for instance, the medical marijuana that was passed, and then there was a framework for what conditions. 99.9% sure that it was just medical marijuana, and these are like the conditions that should go in at first, but after that there was changes and adding conditions or removing conditions that set up the actual framework in North Dakota, for instance. So there are ways to add or remove things from laws. Constitutional, yes, but at the same time there are ways to add or remove things from laws.
Or are those objections that you articulated more appropriate if this amendment were adopted?
Great question, Your Honor. These are not substantive objections that we bring here today. Rather, they are on the face of the ballot measure as to be presented by the voters, and they go to one of the 3 elements of the test announced in the City of North Platte case, which is it confuses voters as to the issues that they will be asked to decide, and it creates doubt as to what they will have approved if, in fact, it passes. And so
essentially what you said there was because it's so long that some voters may not read the whole entire thing, and in other cases that they may be okay with one thing but not with the other thing, which is the whole reason why single subject rule exists. But that's basically what the actual determination came out to be. So they decided that, hey, it had two, like, that was his entire argument, was that this is a little bit too blankety, but at the same time, that was their decision to set that up like that. If they wanted to double down and get the entire framework in 1 year, a lot of people, when they petition and all that stuff, it's a multi-year or multi-election fight. So, I mean, look at Measure 3, or how Measure 3 came out in 2016, I'm talking. Look how that came out. It's a multi-year fight, and a lot came out of it, and there's a lot of confusion there, but what I'm saying is a lot of people, like, yeah, okay, they failed and stuff like that, but they also, even if they had passed, there would be further action and further petitioning to adding extra things or finding the different errors that happened in that law. It would either be citizen-led or legislative-led. There would be those kinds of changes. It's not set in stone again.
This is a facial challenge as authorized by your past precedent. This is not a substantive challenge here today.
So to the extent this is ballot week at the court, you may have noticed, not necessarily that frame. I was there.
Trying to synthesize what has occurred. And I think an appropriate synthesis might be this, that back in the Drummond decision, I believe in 1939, essentially the courts, although not as express, perhaps as the North Platte case said, but arguably set out these 3 factors. And yes, it was a municipal initiative challenge. And essentially, it was common law. And I think if you looked at the 3 elements, it is our position that all 3 elements are applicable to your analysis here today, irrespective of it being a voter-initiated
without a single subject problem?
Yes.
And where from the text of the Constitution would I find that?
So, again, let me highlight there. So, if we're going to look at the single subject, there's a constitutional source for that, right? Article 3, Section 2 clearly provides that. The other two elements, what I think if you look at Drummond and try to analyze it and why it was subsequently adopted and refined in the City of North Platte case, that's common law. I envision a case, for example, that will factors apply. With respect to Sections 1 and 2 that authorizes for authorized users, Section 3, it's very broad reaching. It says that the rights granted by Sections 1 and 2 include the right to access or purchase cannabis products, equipment from private entities or their agents. They can, for growing, cultivation, processing, transporting, selling.
Transportating. Oh, wow, I just peeked the hell out of that. Transportating.
Testing, transferring. It's Section 4 that we believe is the biggest problem when it comes to the single subject. Section 4 is a rather significant carte blanche grant of authority, grant of immunity from arrest, grant of immunity from prosecution, grant of immunity from civil and criminal penalties for violations of the acts. One of the issues that the Secretary of State himself identified when combining 3 and 4 and analyzing those, this is the example he used. Even if a distributor knows or reasonably knows that the amount of cannabis purchased from the distributor is grossly excessive in quantity or frequency from the standpoint of purely personal use, the distributor is absolutely protected from liability if the purchaser is an authorized user.
Unfortunately, I do have to say that I kind of agree with that notion. But that still doesn't answer the fact that this went through all of this, writing up the petition, going through and submitting it to the Secretary of State, who then submits it to the Reviser of Statutes. Basically, it going back and them looking it over. I'm not 1,000% sure. Maybe that guy just oversaw it. That's another question of that. But this would be the whole situation of that, is where along this line did somebody think that that argument wouldn't have been made? And here's tinfoily when I say this, but what if this whole entire thing had passed Secretary of State, Advisor of Statutes, and it kind of was just, it got looked at like, oh, okay, well, we see a glaring hole here. But they're busy, and they're spending money, they're getting signatures, and everything like that. And we know that if we fought them at this time, then they might resubmit, or they might actually start, change the things and then resubmit for their next election. Why don't we waste an entire year of their time? So then we can kill it if, not when, if it passes, or if it gets on the ballot. Even if they get the amount of signatures, then we can kill it. And it looks better to us, because we're not just killing something that's led by the people that voted for me. So it doesn't look like I'm just trying to kill every single thing that I don't like. The argument could be made that they're doing it for the fact of, oh, well, it made it on the ballot, and now we've noticed that this is an issue. And when in reality, they might have known the entire time. Now, what we were talking about with the Reviser of Statutes, that, like it says here, they're free to accept or reject any of the suggestions. This last thing that I did, that was my first time in politics, but or as far as in something like this kind of politics, you would have to be kind of stupid to not take that kind of suggestion and kind of, you know, avenue and not know that that's coming up. Maybe you try to address it while you're petitioning it if you're, you know, going to reject that idea. But this is a glaring hole into a subject that you're trying to change and act like an authority figure about to sell them on this idea, which is what elections are, selling people on ideas. You would have to have some sort of defense there.
You know, when we were going over the cannabis measure, I mean, every time we talked about it, one of the biggest things that we put to the forefront was what's going to be the challenge. You know, what are we going to be challenged with? What kind of argument are they going to have? And it's like how you could go that far and not take these things into consideration. I mean, it was kind of DOA.
Right. And that's where I'm saying that that's kind of, it's a little fishy, but I'm not ready to place blame on the North Dakota medicinal people, but I'm also not ready to place blame on, well, I should have done this the other way. I'm not ready to place blame that it's just Nebraska. It could just be both. And unfortunately, it's because, like, you know, you're free to accept or reject any of these suggestions. It could have just been something like, well, people wouldn't ever think that, you know, this immunity thing has anything to do with, you know, if you break any of these rules, that then you're immune from, you know, prosecution or arrest. I mean, I'm guessing the reason why that's there for the immunity is for that you're immune from being charged if you're caught with it if you're a medicinal patient. I'm pretty sure that's what that wording was. I don't think it was, you know, here's a set of guidelines and here's how we think it should work, and if you break any of these, well, I don't care. I don't think that that's what the idea was. But obviously that argument was made, and I would be shocked to learn that that argument was never made before then. So that's kind of what I have about Nebraska. If things change, because I'm sure this isn't the end. I'm sure that they're going to go for another round. They actually had a bunch of legislative backing behind it. There's a lot of support for them. Obviously, they got a shitload of signatures in the middle of COVID. So can only imagine what happens without COVID. You know, maybe it turns into what North Dakota came out, where it was like Measure 3 again type of thing for some people. But maybe it, you know, they hear all these arguments while they were getting signatures. They wish they had changed it. They, you know, it got killed, and they will just put all the things that they will be ready for arguments before they happen. And that's pretty much the best way to do it. Like what Anthony was saying before, when we were doing ND Freedom, we were sitting there. We even had a meeting about it like this, where, hey, I need you to look into this and figure out what you think people would be against. I need you to look into this and see how people would be for it. And we basically sat there and had a debate, essentially, about different topics that people would have fights with. Reason being is, if you do ever have to do any kind of campaign or politics, what I've learned, again, this was my first time, but at the same time, I have a couple friends that have been in campaigns and stuff like that. You got to learn what your line is in regards to every single topic and every single thing that goes against you. Reason why is you want to appear as if you're even across the board, and that you're not swinging one way or another, and that your stance doesn't change from one interview to another. You want to have a straight line of what you mean and what you want to say there, and you want to make sure that everybody else that asks that question knows that exact same thing. Obviously, questions change, but it's basically based on that. So, hopefully, Nebraska I mean, I'm pretty sure. I think they posted that they're going again. So huge good luck to them. The next thing I wanted to talk about, I haven't heard much from ND Voters First. They said that they're going to fix our elections, so I figure I will do some live Googling to get the latest and breaking, stance from ND Voters First. So, ND Voters First. Oh, I can't spell. So let's Google North Dakota Voters First. Here's their website. Cool. Let's see what other things that we got on here. They got their signatures. We got their signatures here. Somebody's disappointed, but you know what? That's politics. People are always going to be disappointed. They got their Facebook page. There's a Port article. I mean, he is kind of it's not the best as far as if you go against him. But I wonder what this is about. How does a group called North Dakota Voters First not realize the state doesn't have voter registration? That's a good question. Why do you think that they would have that?
That's a very good question.
So here's a post that they posted, got deleted. We're fighting to make sure every vote counts. Double check your voter registration to make sure you're all set to cast your vote on election. Actually, let's find out what happens if you do this. Vote.org. Alright. I would like to check my registration. I really don't want to type in all this information. Register to vote? Let's actually... this, I think, will just send me... Okay. I'm not going to do this live. I'm going to go to this, and I'm going to check my registration. Alright. Well, actually, I can figure out the answer here 1 minute. Register to vote. North Dakota. I need to register to vote in North Dakota. Let me do that. Alright? Let's see what the Google says. North Dakota. North Dakota does not register voters. You are an eligible resident of North Dakota. You're already set to vote. So yeah. It does take less than 30 seconds. You're right. So obviously,
they're really putting us first.
yes, they're very for it. They want to make sure that our elections are fair. They had submitted their 36,000 signatures. There's some people that are disappointed. Apparently, another thing. This is the reason why I said Pork. If Pork gets mad at you, apparently he'll just write a bunch of articles on you, which is kind of really, man. Anyway, apparently they didn't plan to they didn't bother to ask an ethics commission that almost nobody even uses in North Dakota, even though it got passed by the voters. They're just kind of a thing that not many people are doing. They got sued. And I think for the people who haven't heard the news, I think I need to provide proof of the outcome of that lawsuit that everybody is very, very anxiously trying to learn about. If you haven't watched any news, let's find out. Let's go to North Dakota. Oh wow, I can't type today. NorthDakotaVotersFirst.org. I'm sure it would be on their press releases, right? Where's that press release page? About Us. It might be in the About Us. Nope, this is them just talking about the sponsoring committee. They had the privacy policy up. I'm sure it's just a website mistake. I'm sure it's nothing big. They just fucked it up. And in fact, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that it's in this press folder. Okay, let's look at this press release. All right, August 12th. For the people who are wondering, because I'm sure that they're very busy people, like they really care about this. They really, really care a lot. And I'm sure that they're just trying to formulate the correct press release, you know, and that takes a lot of time. You got to talk to a lot of people, even though they were very quickly out to write stuff up, and I'm sure that they have a PR person, because they're probably not a sponsoring committee member, and I'm sure that it's somewhere in, California. They're probably just working on it, and I mean, I would think like what, a couple of days to write something up, right? Well, it's been 19 days. 19 days. And you would think, if you care about your measure and your thing, that you would let people have first-hand knowledge of what happened and how it's going. It's been 19 days. You would think that that would be a thing. If they care so much about their supporters and for getting your vote, you would think that they would write something up. So maybe we should go on their Facebook page, because that might be a thing. Let me just not do this live on air, just because I have a bunch of shit on Facebook, and I really don't want to show people's names on there. North Dakota. I had this planned, I promise. Hide sidebar. There's. Alright. North Dakota voters first. Let's take a look. So I'm just typing in North Dakota, just so that I can find North Dakota voters first, and look what pops up. North Dakota against out-of-state special interests. First, let's look at the North Dakota voters first page, because we want to know about the things that they've been saying, and if they have let anybody know that they are no longer on the ballot. Their last post was on September 3rd, so they are available. They have had time to get on that busy Facebook page, even though the way that they were getting most of their signatures was from ads that they were running on Facebook. A majority of their entire thing has been from Facebook. They took a little bit less than a month break since their loss, this was their last post before they had gotten off the ballot. You would think they would let people know. Nope, they just changed their icon, which is no different than what their actual icon used to be. So yeah, these are their posts, and they haven't really said much. And you would think that people who care about securing our elections and care about ballot access and care about all of these things, having vets vote, which I never thought that vets couldn't vote. They're really for it, and let's have them be the ability to vote, because apparently they never had that ability. So hopefully they get to it. So let's go back and see what North Dakota comes out to be. Again, this is biased because it's based on my searches on Facebook. I know that these are the things that are going to pop up. So North Dakota against out-of-state special interests. This is a different group. Here's the group. That's the reason why I didn't want to do this live on air. What does Measure 2 do? Well, this is one. Why do we need Measure 2? Measure 2 is needed because increasingly out-of-state special interests target North Dakota to advance their radical agenda. In the past, 4 election cycles, 5 initiated constitutional measures have been proposed by out-of-state interests. I know of one that was in-state. Of the measures proposed by constitutional initiative, 3 out of the 5 were 100% funded by out-of-state entities or persons. The other 2 were more than 85% funded by out-of-state special interests. The recent Measure 3 relating to election reform is only the most recent example of out-of-state interests attempting to change the way North Dakota governs themselves. Measure 2 has nothing to do with money. Measure 2 has everything to do with how laws get passed by people who are not in the legislative branch. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with funding or the interests. Measure 2 passes, it can still have out-of-state interests pass laws in North Dakota. It's just one step harder, and that's to say that's a constitutional change. Let's talk about statutory law changes. This has nothing to do with finances, but because these were the people that sued them, by the way, because they sued North Dakota Voters First, they got some attention. They're not the ones that wrote Measure 2. They got some attention, but then they can take and become, this is a stupid word and I've learned recently about what it is, a political influencer in North Dakota. Which means that they can influence people's decisions and views on certain political topics. That's what this handed them. North Dakota Voters First, in their reckless ways of passing their measure, whether you agree with their points or not, with the reckless methods of which they were able to pass and how slick, and I don't know if you'd call it slick, how slimy and snaky they were when it comes to their messaging and their method of trying to get these signatures and passing these laws, had handed somebody the ability to become a political influencer over a small thing that they could have prevented. Like, obviously, the more people that have, well, I wouldn't say influence, actually, the argument can be made. The more people that have influence into your decisions, the more sheep you act. And to actually add that card and add another voice that could possibly influence your decision making, you're hurting the entire view of politics and the way people think. You didn't only hurt your... What I'm trying to say is you didn't only hurt your cause. You hurt all the causes. Especially the ones that are passing constitutional measures. And if you keep scrolling, it's just all Measure 2. Okay, that's different. North Dakota for Donald Trump. Whatever. It's... Okay, this is them announcing it on the 25th. There are a couple things that Measure 2 does not do, and a couple things that it does do. I'm trying to find the one that... yeah, here's what Measure 2 says. In effect, what a constitutional amendment... About a constitutional amendment, sorry. So you want to amend our Constitution. Well, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's invite your supporters and those who might oppose your proposal for a cup of coffee. Let's organize a public discussion. Let's debate. Let's hear what everybody who wants to be heard before we vote on your proposal. Let's invite the media. Let's record the testimony. And then let's decide on the wisdom of your proposal. The biggest problem with that argument there is what if it's something that legislator then, that it's a yes vote and it doesn't go back to the voters. If you're trying to say that, hey, you know, we should all sit down and all have this discussion and all of that stuff, that's fine. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically allow for a single issue to be voted on twice. People, and I can tell you this from talking to people, when North Dakota for Freedom was going on, I absolutely hate having to say this over and over again, but talking to people, oh, you're Measure 3 again. Oh, didn't that fail? Oh, I voted, it's already legal. Some people actually thought, it's already done. Measure 3 is a thing. I don't know why you're keeping to get signatures. It's that argument that is going to lessen your chances of the actual law passing. So essentially what you're trying to do with Measure 2 is to basically say, hey, we don't think that this is something that we want as a legislator. You know what? I don't like this. It didn't give me enough money. Or, you know what? I fundamentally, religiously, or it goes against my morals and feelings, so I don't want it to pass. And I'm going to get a whole bunch of people to say no, because my emotions and feelings matter. And, yeah, so good luck. And then it gets a no vote, and then the next election cycle comes out, and people are like, oh, I must have gotten the old ballot, because this is the same. There's this thing. And the people who are passing that measure had to sit and get the message out, because you get your signatures, you still gotta, like, get people to vote yes. So you still gotta, like, talk to people, spend money for advertising, make advertising even. It's not really, it's not the easiest thing in the world to make advertising, or to make, you know, be creative about certain things. It's not super easy. It's not like you just wake up one morning and think, oh, this is perfect. I just need to go do this one thing. You can't go on the internet and say, print me out one advertisement. You have to make it. You have to spend the money to make it. You have to, even if you're making it yourself, you have to spend the money for figuring out how to mass produce it. You have to do that twice if somebody says no. If it passes and they just don't feel like it morally goes with their standards, you have to spend that again. Say you spent $10,000 for lawn signs, and then it happens. It passes, and it goes to the legislator and gets shot down. Those people who have those lawn signs probably won't have them anymore. Or if they do, you'll probably want to have different advertising to get that different, like, view in people's heads. You have to do that again. You have to spend another $10,000. And the other situation with that is a lot of people spend a lot of money in campaigning. And if they have to do it again, they would be more open to out-of-state money. Because I already spent my $10,000. I can't afford to spend another $10,000. Oh, but this person who believes in my cause wants to spend $10,000. So I'll take it. I don't care who it is. Because the ends justify the means type of thing. You're setting up that kind of an argument. And that is the reason why Measure 2 is bad. And before, because I just realized about halfway through my rant here what is going to happen more than likely. If you're an admin of the North Dakota thing, that page that I just showed, and you have some sort of rule saying you can't show it in public, first of all, you're on a public platform. Yeah, you're a private group, but you have open availability for people to get in. If you're going to be mad about that, I don't give a fuck. Go away. Because I'm pretty sure that they have that rule. So, go ahead and ban me. You don't even have to let me know. Huh?
I said, yeah, it's a public platform, not a thing.
Yeah. No, you don't have a argument here with that. But yeah, so that's basically the reason why Measure 2 is, like, going to completely ruin it, and is actually going to make politics way worse. Because you're also opening up the fact of people being desperate and wanting to pass something, and trying to get legislators on their side, and that type of a situation just in general is you're making concessions there anyway, because that's kind of how that works. So especially if you're passing just a constitutional one, if you're what's to say that statutory isn't next? Honestly, there's really nothing stopping it. So, like, essentially, you give them an inch and they'll take a mile. So that's kind of what it's going to be like. And the fact that North Dakota Voters First basically made the argument completely. Before North Dakota Voters First, nobody even knew what SB 4001 was. We are the ones who kept talking about it. And we also do have, this might be a little bit opposing when I say this, and I totally didn't put this in the docket, so I'm sorry, but I also want to mention this as well. Let's see here. This news article, once I find it in my chat here. Where is that? Yeah. I remember seeing the actual thing here. Yep. So, North Dakota voters in November will decide whether the legislators should have the power to review and approve citizen-initiated constitutional amendments. An opposition group says it would effectively giving lawmakers veto power over what citizens want. The group called Protect ND gathered at the state capitol on Wednesday as part of a campaign to defeat the measure. Protect ND is run by Dustin Garrylow. Said the measure usurps the will of the people and undermines the idea of direct democracy. Before I send the next part, there was also an article that was from, I want to say, let's see here, which date was this? This was February 23rd, updated on February 24th. North Dakota Watchdog Network Managing Director Dustin Garrylow led a sponsoring committee that in April 2019 proposed a countermeasure to tighten how the powers reserved to the people in North Dakota's constitution would be amended, leaving petitioning as the only avenue to amending the article. He told the Tribune on Friday that he's shifting my priorities for defeating the legislative measure, calling his proposal on life support. Don't take this the wrong way when I say this, but weird because absolutely nobody knew that this measure existed. And I can tell you exactly what the measure even looked like. Once I find it in my chat. Yes, I did a lot of digging for this one. This was the measure. Full text of the measure. Section 1. A new section in Article 3 of the Constitution of North Dakota is created and enacted as follows. Any statute I don't know how to say that word. It's going to be that. Yeah, any statute that impacts the exercise of powers granted to the people in this article is subject to review by the Supreme Court in the exercise of original jurisdiction. Section 16 of Article 4, the Constitution of North Dakota is amended and reenacted as follows. Any amendment to this Constitution may be proposed by either House or Legislative Assembly, and if agreed upon, a roll call by a majority of the members enacted. That's basically the thing. The underlined part is what they're trying to add to it. However, the Legislative Assembly may not submit a constitutional amendment to the electors if the amendment would alter the powers granted to the people under Article 3 of the Constitution, or if the amendment constitutes a resubmission of a constitutional amendment approved by the majority of voters within the last 7 years. This is basically covering up that loophole. This was a constitutional amendment. It needed 26,000 signatures. It has an entire sponsoring committee. And yet absolutely nobody knew that this pretty much existed. Like, when I did Google searching for this and looking for all of this stuff, I could find maybe 2 Facebook pages. I knew some of the people in the group, but it has to have had a life before it was put on life support. I'm for your idea. I'm for your, your views, but like, kind of bullshit when you say that it was on life support when it wasn't even, it didn't even have a life. Anyway, that is my major Measure 2 rant.
Thinking next Sunday we'll really dig. Like, I think as we get closer to election, we'll start really digging more in on voting rights.
Yeah. Oh, this
key
entire
information.
This measure is going to be on every single episode till the election, which is only like 50 days away or something like that. How many days away from the election are we? North Dakota, I know it's on the Secretary of State's website, so I'm gonna go with that. How many days till the election? Ballot measures, or maybe it was under elections. 51 days. You're 51 days away from the election. If you want to do any kind of research into what's going to be on the ballot, let me just mention this as well. I never remember this vip.sos.nd.gov. Just type in ND SOS, Secretary of State, North Dakota Secretary of State, first link. Alright, you can even hit elections right there, hit ballot measures, hit the November 3rd election. These are what's going to be on the ballot. If you would like to read any of this, this one is that Measure 2, and Measure 1 is about school board. If you want to know, here's another thing that a lot of people don't seem to know. If you want to know how money, where money goes, and how people have money to make these elections, or not make these elections, but make these measures, or run for office, hit the campaign finance button, and hit Access North Dakota Campaign Finance Online. This had a different thing before. Maybe I hit the wrong one. Search for filed campaign statements. I think that's what this one is. Yep, there you go. Search for filed ones. Select the year, so you can even go back to 2010 if you wanted. Type in 2020. You can file by the candidate or the committee. These are the 2 ones that you're going to go with the most if you're just trying to look into a measure. So let's make an example out of this. All North Dakota voters first. As you can see, I've already searched it up. Type in, for instance, North Dakota voters first. Let's see who gave money to North Dakota voters first over the amount of $200 in a year. I think it's $200. Pretty sure it is. All right, so you hit search. You see this thing. This is the sponsoring committee. This is their committee name. And political action committee is basically what that means. So this is who runs it. Their address. They obviously have the info at ND Voters First. Phone number if you want to reach them. Here's their statements for how much money. This is how much money that they had spent. I think, yeah, that's the amount that they had spent. So, like, in, 6 is June, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in June, they got $35,000 from Represent Us. So that's a thing. That's within the 48-hour. So that was their major deposit. Another $5,000 from Unite America. This is basically a breakdown of all of their money when it comes to over $200. Or maybe it's over, I don't know what the number is. Either way, these are the, this is how much money they spent. So they used a service for $335,000, by the way, called Advanced Micro Targeting. They're out of Texas. Amy Jacobson gave 15, almost 16K. Lowe's, they spent money. Oh, they spent money to Amy Jacobson to that amount. Lowe's, I'm guessing it's just probably like some sort of work. But yeah, this is basically how you can find out who funds the people that you're for or against in North Dakota. Obviously, if you're trying to find federally, Open Secrets is a website. OpenSecrets.org, that's the one. And here you can find dark money groups that are going in. If you really just want to know what the finance portion of campaigns look like, that's the one to look at. But other than that, yeah, that's all I got. We're almost coming up on 2 hours, so enjoy the extra long special. Last week I can go on. We honestly didn't have really much of a show, so yeah, sorry I didn't let anybody know, but that's the thing. But yeah, that's all we have. If you like this video, make sure to check us out on YouTube, which is the channel you're watching this on, or on Facebook, Canna Talk ND. And if you like this show and want to listen more or want to watch more stuff, Canna Talk ND with Wilson on 95.9 Radio Free Fargo every Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. Most of the stories that I cover, he doesn't cover. Well, I mean, sometimes we do, but like, it's not just a regurgitation of what I say, and my show isn't a regurgitation of what he says. We kind of have like different stories that we do, or different things that we're both interested in that we go with. So yeah, it's a good show. Really should watch it on YouTube if you want to watch it. Otherwise, listen live, radiofreefargo.org, or if you're in the Fargo-Moorhead area, 95.9. Or go on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and while you're on your way over to Joe Rogan Podcast, go to Canna Talk ND and listen there. And that's every Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. But yeah, that's all I got. My name is Phil.
I'm Anthony.
And this has been CannaHeads ND. We will see you guys next week on Sunday. Obviously, it's a week away. At 7:30 p.m. All right. Bye.
Bye.